Okay, first ever live stream ever on CodePen. What we're looking at, you can see me down in the corner, whatever, the URL for CodePen, whatever. Branding, you can see the editor of CodePen, which is the heart and soul of CodePen, but we're jumping ahead of ourselves already. We're already looking at the editor. This is what CodePen looks like when you are logged into it as a user. I could log out for a minute and look at, like, if you're arriving to CodePen, never heard of CodePen, whatever. I mean, you're probably following us on Twitter, which is how you got here. So you probably are a member already, but if you're not, this is what it looks like. You can sign up. We have free plans and pro plans, but that's neither here nor there. I'm just going to talk about the basics of how the CodePen editor works. This is what it looks like to be logged into CodePen. And what it's mostly used for, CodePen, is writing code. It's a front-end code editor. And by that I mean, I'm going to go create a new pen here. I can write HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and see what I'm doing below here. You can see the CodePen editor is split into these three panels here. I can literally just write stuff in here. Write stuff in here. And you'll see it down here below. I can write in HTML. I'd write an H1 tag and be like, hello, folks. And you'll see that rendered as an H1 tag down here below. Now, even if you're brand new to web design, you might be like, that's weird. That's a little segment of HTML. That's not a complete HTML document. I'm used to writing HTML in HTML documents that look more like this kind of thing. They have a doc type at the top, and they have a head, and there's a body. And I write in there. Now, if I have that in here, it's not the end of the world, but the way that CodePen works is it takes what you've written in here. Let me just get rid of it for a minute. And it puts it inside of that boilerplate template that looked more like this. We do that on purpose. Just to save you a little time. When you come in here, it's just like, I don't want to have to write out a whole doc type, whatever. I just want to get to work. So that's that. If I dig in here with like Chrome DevTools and take a look, you can see that CodePen does indeed drop it within a body tag, within an HTML tag, within an HTML5 doc type and stuff. We're just kind of saving you some time there for a second. No big deal. I can write CSS, and CSS is injected into the head of that document. So if I type H1, color red, it's going to turn this thing red. So it's kind of the beauty of CodePen, is being able to write HTML and being able to style it with CSS with all the boilerplate stuff is kind of done for you. And I could write something like document dot, let's give this thing an ID, right? ID equals title. How do we get a reference to that in JavaScript? We'll go var title equals document dot get. Or let's do a query selector. That's the more modern way to do things, isn't it? Query selector, which will just give us one result, title. And now we have a reference to that DOM node, and I can go title dot whatever, inner HTML equals goodbye, folks. And we won't even see hello folks anymore, because JavaScript has grabbed that node and replaced its contents or whatever. That's kind of the heart of CodePen, is being able to write HTML, CSS, and JavaScript like that. So let's say we wanted to, do something a little more real worldy. We want to, write real CSS. Let's add some custom fonts to this thing. So hopefully you can see my browser window with a new tab. Let's see, Google Fonts. What's like the most popular Google font ever, like Roboto or Open Sans or something? Let's use Roboto. I'm gonna select that font. You probably all used this interface before, and it gives me two ways to use this custom font. One is a link tag. Now, if you know anything about web design, the link tag goes in the head of your document. It's the only valid place it can go. But we don't have a whole doc type here, so how do you do that in CodePen? It's just a little different. We have to open our settings and go under the HTML tab of the pen settings. These are settings that apply to just this. This is called a pen, the thing that, the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, one single demo on CodePen is called a pen. The pen settings, here are the settings just for the HTML. It says, I can add classes to the HTML, and there's just a section that's just a stuff for head. I can just paste that link that Google Fonts gave us in there. We could do stuff like this, like put Node.js class on our HTML tag, only to remove it later or something. It just gives you a little control over your document without having to look at the entire document all the time. So now that we have that available, you can see this is the first time we're saving it. So now it's giving us a URL to this pen. I could give this to anybody. I could tweet this or whatever. I'm going to open an incognito window and paste it. Actually, you probably can't see my screen me doing that, but anybody can view this thing now. It's public, and in fact, it's not only public, but open sourced, MIT license. So don't put anything here that's like super proprietary client work or anything if you're not allowed to do that. All public pens on CodePen are MIT licensed. So I want to use this Roboto font. It's now available to me, and if I look in the web inspector and look in the head section, I'll see that that link element got put there for me, and it put it before this style tag, which is the CSS that I've written in my pen. You know, just so I'm showing you behind the scenes how that works there. So if we were to say, like, let's say we want the entire document to have that font, we just paste the code that Google Fonts gave us there, and it's working. I can make this bigger in case it's really small on the screen. 5 rem or something. There we go. Goodbye, folks. It's working. So we've made a first pen. I'd say putting good typography in your pen is a good chance of getting some popularity on CodePen at all. Let me look in here. So we got Animesh. Sorry if I said that wrong. Query selector. Yeah. Anyway, what's up? There's some people watching. That's fantastic. Welcome to the first ever CodePen live seminar. I'm sure some of you have know more about CodePen than I do, in a sense, but we'll see. So we want to, in a sense, we want to make CodePen as comfortable of a coding place as it can possibly be for you. So, you know, by default, we have this pretty nice font called Operator Mono going, but if you didn't want that, you could change the font in use, you can change the colors in use, you can change the languages in use, all that kind of thing. Just for a moment, let's look at what your user settings for that are, and this is available to all users of CodePen. I'm going to click on my own icon here and go to settings, then we'll come back to that pen. It's like, let's say I don't like the darkness of CodePen when I'm writing code. I want to write on a light theme. We have this whole section of light themes, and it's giving you a kind of a preview here on the right of what that looks like. Here's one that's kind of copies what the syntax highlighting theme from the Mozilla Developer Network. Let's say we love that, and let's activate Fira Code, which is a fun one that we've just upgraded recently as far as a font that's available that has ligatures in it, which is really cool. Let's bump up the font size for the stream. Oh, it's already pretty humongous at 20 pixels. So let's leave it there and then go back to that pen. How do we get there? Well, we know how browsers work. We could just hit the back button and get there. But the pens that you create are part of your profile as well, and that's how you can get back to them. So I'm going to look at my own profile on CodePen. See myself right here. This is my cool profile. I've customized it a little bit. We probably won't get into that right now. But if I go into pens and public, I'll see that pen, a little preview of the pen that I just made here. So here's a bunch of pens I've been working on recently. And here's this one I can one-click go to get back to. And whoa, it looks a lot different, right? It looks like a light theme. So just in case I prefer that font, that color, that kind of thing. It's just part of, like, I want you to feel comfortable writing code on CodePen, and whatever it takes to kind of get there, we can do. Speaking of comfort, one of the things is, like, I don't, you know, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript are great, but I'm kind of a Sass person. I prefer writing in Sass. It's just more comfortable to me because I've been doing it forever. Fine. That kind of choices like that happen, not at a global level, but on a pen level. So if I click this little gear next to the CSS thing, go under CSS, it says offers me a CSS preprocessor choice. I can pick something like Sass, hit save, and now that's available to me as the language I'm writing CSS in. It will compile down to CSS before I do. If you have no idea what CSS preprocessors are, that's fine. You don't have to use it. You can level up to that. You can ignore it entirely. It doesn't matter. Here's like a miniature feature of how it might work. Is we might say that the font or the font family, you can do variables in Sass. Font family is this, right, or something. And then we could say, well, the font family is the font family. That way, if we were using that font family in multiple places throughout our code, we could change it in one place and it would be changed all over the place. What's kind of cool about that is like, okay, that's not CSS anymore, right? It's not like we just take this code that you've written and plunk it right down into here and hope that it works. No, preprocessor languages are turned into CSS first and then put into the document. So if we look at the document, we do the behind the scenes thing, what you'll see in the head in that style tag is processed CSS. But you don't have to dig into here to see that. We make that available to you right in the CodePen UI. You can click this drop-down menu, which has a bunch of options in here, including things like clean up my Sass for me and stuff like that. You can say view compile, and it'll show you the CSS that compiles to, which is not terribly surprising, right? You don't see the variable anymore. The variable was just moved into here and whatnot. So now I'm writing in a pen in HTML, Sass, and JavaScript. So that's pretty cool. One of the things is, like, let's say I was writing a blog post and I wanted this to be the demo in the blog post. I'd be like, okay, I could just link them over to CodePen and they can look at that. And in fact, the origins of CodePen are that kind of. I was like, this is such a cool, compelling way to teach people coding that it's great to send people to a page like this where they can really kind of clearly see what's going on with the code. But you can also bring this to your blog or to wherever you publish on, anywhere that's not CodePen that is a website. And that's our embedding feature. So if you click embed in the bottom right corner, there is the thing that I clicked on. There's just this little mini version of CodePen that still allows people to see the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, toggle through them, and see the results. Or in fact, if they toggle everything off, it's not really a secret, but on your own blog, it'll show about the pen and who created and stuff. You can't see that in this view, though. If this is really intensive, let's say it was a crazy canvas animation that takes a bunch of browser memory or something, you can click this on, which is called click to load, which means that they won't see exactly what we're seeing below here. They'll see kind of a splash page that they have to click before the pen loads, which is just good for performance if there's lots of embeds. And if you're a pro member of CodePen, you can click this button, which makes this live editable code even on your site. So it's like really is a little tiny mini version of CodePen. Look at, I can even dog food this thing. I'll turn this on and I'll grab the embed code and I'll paste it in here and you'll be able to see what an embed looks like in CodePen. Hello folks, or whatever. Oh yeah, I have to change the JavaScript if you want to see that. It's a little mini CodePen in CodePen. How meta. Cool. I'll get rid of that for a minute and we'll go back to what we were looking at before. But you see how it's real time like that? It's so cool that whatever you change immediately is replicated below here. Let me check in on the comments, see what everybody's talking about. Thanks for Chris Enns for watching. Chris Enns was Chris, I'm using Infinicine or whatever for this one this time. See how it goes. I had a little bit of technical trouble at the beginning, but it seemed to work out pretty good. Chris is our audio guy at Shop Talk Show and CodePen Radio, and helps me with tech stuff like this sometimes. All right, so that's CSS a little bit. There's another superpower of CSS available to you. It's called Auto Prefixer, and it's available to you regardless of what CSS preprocessor you use. So if I open the pen settings here, there's a couple more settings here. We might as well cover them all. One of them is just like so many people want to use some kind of CSS reset. So if you want one, you can just click one on rather than having to copy all that code into the editor for you. And you can see immediately goodbye folks has kind of hugged itself up into the corner of this pen. It's because that reset has removed the margin and padding and stuff around that element for us, or around that element and the body element around it and that type of thing. One of the other things I can do here is turn on something called Auto Prefixer. Perhaps some of you have heard of it. It's a pretty darn cool feature that adds vendor prefixes as necessary to the CSS that you write. So let's say I'm gonna write some navigation, and let's rabbit hole again for another second. I can to really quickly write out some HTML. I can type something like nav and then just hit the tab key in CodePen, and it's going to turn that into HTML elements for me. That's a feature called Emmet. Another reason it's kind of comfortable to code in CodePen is because we have some features like that. Let's say I want like 5 A tags. I can type A times 5 and it'll give me 5 of them, which is pretty cool. Within that, I could say something like, or how does this work? Is it like this? Test Yeah, that puts the actual stuff in there. Test $sign should be 1 through 5, that kind of thing. Okay, so now I have some HTML to work with down here. Let's say nav is display flex. So here's another thing I'm looking at already. See all these options? Like, what if I was like, what's that property that starts with the D again? I can just hit D and it gives me all these options called autocomplete. Yet another reason it's comfortable to code on CodePen. Display flex, yeah, that's the one. So now I have this navigation is turned to Flexbox for me, and I could do, because I have Sass available, I could say all these items in here, make them flex 1, and it should stretch them across the entire screen. That's great. Flexbox is amazing. I love it. It's a thing that's worthwhile to learn for sure. Let's see. Background red, color white, text decoration none, font weight bold. I mean, we can just get crazy here. Font size 1.5 rem, padding 1 rem. So we look at something kind of for real here. Look how fast that goes. That's really nice. Now, some of you are like, Flexbox is great, but don't you need to do, like, to get the best possible browser support, don't you have to do like, I don't even remember, Moz Flex, or who knows? It's like, I don't even remember what all the browser prefixes are that you need to make Flexbox work as deep as it can across browsers. Well, you don't have to know that. You can just turn on auto prefixer and it'll make sure that that happens for you. And again, that's something that you can see by saying view compiled CSS. It will show you, yes, those are the vendor prefixes at the moment that is necessary to make Flexbox work across all the browsers. And you just kind of get that for free. You don't have to think about it, which is great. There are ways to customize the output of auto prefixer. There's blog posts on that, but a little outside of the scope of our quick little demo here. Fun. Okay, more stuff. So let's say that this is like every website I build probably is Sass, probably uses Roboto, probably has all this stuff that is just, this is like boilerplate thing that I build. I could say, this is my simple Sass and Roboto template. Template is the key word there. If I want to really like speed up because I'm making like 5 demos and they're all the same, or maybe I make a demo a day for the rest of my life and it always uses these same settings, one of the convenient things to do here is turn this into a template. And there's just a tiny little checkbox down here in Pen settings and says, that's a template. I have that now as a template. And what that does is I can go to the home page where I'm just browsing around CodePen, seeing what other people are doing, hearting things, commenting on other people's pens, because that's all part of the CodePen experience too, is you're part of a community of people, playing around with the front end. I can say create a new pen from a template, and then that's going to be in my list of templates. This is my simple Sass and Roboto template. If I click it, it doesn't open that same exact pen. You can see that this is an untitled pen. It's not saved. There's no, it hasn't have a slug or a URL yet, but it has all the same code and all the same settings. So that's just kind of how templating works. It can speed things along for you if you like that. There's another version of this. Isn't templating, but we can go back to our settings. Now notice I didn't change a single thing there, so it's just like, yeah, he just made that from a template. I'm just going to go away. If I had changed some code there and I clicked a link to go away from that page, CodePen would stop me and be like, wait, you're about to lose work. So we try to make it as hard as possible to lose any work on CodePen. Just something to be aware of. Let's say I write in Sass all the time. I don't want to use a template. Every time I open the CodePen editor, I want it to be on Sass, unless it's like somebody else's pen, and then it's their settings for their pen. But like, let's say I'll do that. I'm going to turn, and that's why I'm in, settings editor, and I'm turning on Sass, and I'm just going to hit save. Then if I go to create a new pen, you'll see that the editor is automatically in Sass. It's just like, this is just me. This is just what I prefer. I want that on all the time. And that could be less. It could be post CSS. It could be whatever. It could be, I write in Markdown a lot. I want to make the default Markdown. Just know that you can have those settings be on all the time. And here's some more comfort-based settings in here. If you use Sublime Text a lot, you might be used to its key commands, like duplicating a line in Sublime Text is Command-Shift-D. And so like that's matched. Like we make the key commands match what you expect in Sublime Text. You can turn that on optionally. And Vim is really weird, but it happens to be supported on CodePen. I don't know much about Vim. I mean, I do. I know what it is and stuff, but it's a very different world, I should say. And that's available to you on CodePen as well. And that's just some of the settings that are here in CodePen. You can adjust how your profile looks and says and where you live and what your links are. You can adjust what kind of emails you get. You can adjust what your profile looks like. You can take a cool pen and put it in the header of your profile, which is kind of fun. You can apply different CSS and take full CSS control over your profile. And all that kind of thing. And then it goes into pro features and billing and stuff like that. So that's kind of the gist of it. There's a few more things to cover. Well, we could talk all day long. There's kind of infinite things to cover. But one of the things I thought I'd cover is external assets a little bit more. So let's create a new pen. Let's see. I'm gonna write. Let's say this is gonna be a JavaScript heavy kind of pen thing, but it's gonna be using some like external data. Let's say. So first, let's be like, okay, I want some convenience of Ajax, so I'm gonna write that. First of all, you see what I did there? I was like, I'm gonna write some JavaScript. So intuitively, I was like, I'm just gonna maximize the JavaScript. Go away all these other panels. I don't need them right now. So one of the ways I did that was just grab the panel and just dragged it away. I could have also double clicked on this bar up here. Oh, I thought so. Maybe it's being weird. I can go maximize editor. And it'll push those other ones away. Or double click the bar, that's it. If I double click the HTML bar, it will maximize it. If I double click the CSS bar, it'll maximize CSS. Since it's already maximized, if I double click it, it'll bring everything back to normal kind of thing. Just some things to be aware of there. But for now, I'll maximize the JavaScript editor. And I want jQuery available to me. I'm going to write some JavaScript, but I'm going to write in jQuery, using the library jQuery. How do I do that in CodePen? Well, if I click the gear, I'm going to jump right to the JavaScript settings for this pen, which JavaScript also has preprocessors like CSS does. I can say, I want to write in CoffeeScript or TypeScript or Babel or whatever. But that doesn't give me jQuery. The way jQuery is like, I need a copy of jQuery that I can link up, like a CDN hosted copy of jQuery somewhere on the web. So I could go to like CDN.js, and I could go to that place, and I could search for jQuery, and it's going to give me that, and I could say copy URL, and I could put that URL here in external JavaScript, and now I have jQuery available to me. That could be hosted anywhere. It could be a JavaScript file on your own website. It could be anything. As long as this URL resolves to the asset that you're looking for, that will work here in the editor. Now we try to make that even more convenient for you. For example, you can quick add jQuery, although don't get used to that. We're thinking of getting rid of quick add because I want to train everybody a little bit more to use our type ahead feature, which is more like this. You just type jQuery down, there it is, you know? And what's cool about that is there's thousands of libraries in here. I want Lodash, I want D3, I want, what's other ones? P5. They're just really easy to find with the type ahead, and you just click it, hit down, select the one you want, hit enter, and they pop in here. And that's good to go for you. So now I have jQuery available to me, so I could do something like, I'm going to write a button, and I'm going to say, this is my button. And so now, because I have jQuery available, I can say button on click, run this function, console.log, the button was clicked. So cool, I can click the button, it won't actually do anything, but it should be sending messages to a console, which we could check in the browser console, but CodePen has a console as well, so I can click open the console here, and it's gonna, the button was clicked, the button was clicked, the button was clicked. I'll hit clear, click it one time, and it's gonna output to the console there, so that's kind of convenient. it's nice that you don't, in the CodePen console, you don't have to switch contexts or anything other than the browser. The browser console is technically a little bit more powerful, of course, than ours, but ours is convenient and that's built right into the UI, and you can teach it, and it syncs in professor mode. There's lots of kind of compelling reasons to it. In fact, SAS can output warnings to it and things like that. Anyway, so now I have jQuery going, let's say I wanted to like build kind of an app based on some data, not just some code that I dropped in here, but literally like maybe some JSON data. I could open up assets. So this is a pro feature territory I'm getting into already, so excuse me there, but there's this feature called asset hosting on CodePen, and you'll see an assets button down here, and it'll be there if you're not pro, and it'll remind you that you're not pro. But if you're pro, it opens and it looks like this, and it's just a whole bunch of files. So I'm just looking in my files for some JSON. Here's one right here. I'll copy that URL, and it's basically just like we host files for you. They could be images, JavaScript, CSS, pretty much any file. We'll just host it for you, and all you got to do is drag and drop the file onto that area, and we'll host it for you and give you a URL to it. So here's some JSON data. Let's say I want to build an app that's based on some data like that. I could say something like get JSON in jQuery and put that URL there and run this function that spits out the data, and then console.log that data, and we'll see what we get. In the console, I think it's probably not going to have anything in there. Let's look in the browser console for a second. It's going to say something about access control allow origin. So that's a weird thing about CodePen that it's kind of been fixed. This is an old asset, but the way around that is just to put like break equals cache or whatever. Just put some query parameter, which will give fresh headers to that thing. Oh, now look in the console, it's blasted out all the JSON data that was available in there. So it looks like it's, I'm going to put, watch this, I'm going to put console.clear up here and then run this thing. So whenever it runs, I just get like one clean copy of the console, and that's it. Okay, so it's returning an object of which there is a fathers thing in there. So we could say data.fathers. Let me just take a look at that. Inside that is an array, I guess. It's another fathers. What's the first father? 0. And it has a name, right? Robert Wilson. So it's like, I'm just whatever. You could send this data into a templating engine and do something, but I could just go like document element inner HTML or whatever equals data father's name. That should work. Why didn't that work? Document element inner HTML. Save. Run. Well, you like my button. Data is not defined. Oh, because data is like only exists. What if we go var data? Or wait, var outside data, and then go like outside data equals data. Outside data. Functions are cool. I don't know. I'm delving into Robert Wilson. I spelled it wrong. You will not defeat me. It's defeated me. Why isn't it putting the data there? Anyway, it should say Robert Wilson in the document, but it totally doesn't matter. That's JavaScript. So okay, so I have some JSON that I'm playing with data-wise. It could be like blog data. This could be simulating an API. It could be an actual real API that's spitting out the weather, or like data from my Airtable or from my Google Doc spreadsheet or something. It's just kind of fun to know that you can build things in CodePen that are not just totally static. That you can use APIs and stuff in Ajax. So there's fathers.json. What if I wanted to change it though? Like I told CodePen to host this asset for me, and in CodePen I can change code really easily. I just come into the editor and edit it. How do I edit that file? How do I edit fathers.json? Well, you get the asset manager to do that. So the asset manager is just kind of like more of a full page experience for all of your assets. For example, I can look for it, fathers, and it will kind of find it for me. If I click to open it, it's going to tell me information about that file, who uploaded it, when it uploaded, what size is it, where it is, and it'll give me code as well. So what was Robert Wilson was his name? Robert DeBruce, more like, right? So if I hit save, did I save that pen, my weird fathers one? And I refresh it. I wonder if the cache is messed on it. Cache 2. Robert DeBruce. It worked. Everything works perfectly. All right, cool. Okay. So another thing to know is just because we talked about, the fact that you just write HTML without the doc type and you write CSS and it just gets injected into the head, where does the JavaScript go? If we look into this document, which we're just behind the scenes, I don't think generally you need to use the web inspector as much as we are here, but we're just kind of learning how CodePen works. Note that the HTML gets plunked right into the body. There isn't any here, but if we put some in here, you'll see that. Oh God, it's so tiny and awkward. Let's inspect on that. That data in the HTML gets plunked right into the body. The CSS gets plunked in right into the head, and the JavaScript gets put after everything else in the body. So ignore them. There's a few things in here that you won't recognize, but they're just things that are necessary for CodePen to work and smoothly and protect you from yourself. So here's jQuery. That's the library that we added. It's in settings. I don't know if we'll be able to see up here because it's so weirdly tiny. But it's going to put any libraries you put in external assets first, and then your code. So that makes sense, right? jQuery has to load before I write jQuery code. jQuery, the library, has to load, and then it puts this. So just one of the things to know there is you'll see a lot of jQuery like out in the world that starts with like this kind of thing, function, and then wraps it around it. And all that was like a DOM ready statement, and you just kind of don't need it on CodePen. It's just one of those decisions we made to like make it just like, no, you don't need that stuff because we load your jQuery at the bottom, which is kind of a best practice anyway. So there is documentation about all this kind of thing. Let's see, it's at blog documentation. That, for example, shows you the template, the preview template we call it. It's like, this is like the template that your code gets put into before it's displayed, in case you need reference for that kind of thing. And the documentation is just good overall because it just covers every single feature, free and pro, and just how everything works. There's tons of information in there on everything. We probably should do a different stream type of thing, a different time, about all the pro features. We covered a few of them kind of randomly, like the asset uploading was a pro feature, and the ability to have editable embeds is a pro feature. Perhaps the biggest one, even though it's seemingly small but kind of a big deal, is that CodePen operates a little bit like GitHub operates, in that when you make you can make as many free pens as you want, or not free, even on a free plan, you can make as many pens as you'd like, as long as they're public. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not limited on CodePen for pens or collections or posts, but if you want to make things private, you have to be pro. And you can tell I'm pro because I have this little pro badge down here, but I have a button that says save as private. And if I click that, I'll get a copy of this pen that has this really long, weird URL here, which is so long and so weird that it's like scientifically unguessable, like no one will find this by just guessing random URLs or anything like that. it's hidden from anybody else being able to browse around CodePen and find it. It's hidden from search on CodePen, and we attempt to hide it from any kind of web crawler search and that type of thing. But it's still shareable. Like if I made this pen, I made it private, I shared it on Twitter, other people would still be able to open this particular pen and see the results of it. So it's as private as you want to be. And there's a half dozen other pro features you get on CodePen. So CodePen is a free app. You can sign up for free and use it, and it's pretty powerful and cool. And then if the pro features compel you, of which there are many, you can sign up and pay for it. So that's that. Hopefully we'll do this. Was pretty fun. Let's see. Sean Dempsey showed up. What's up, Sean? Live streaming is fun. Hopefully this worked out. Maybe next time we'll get some more people in here asking questions. I'll stay in here another 5-10 minutes and see if anybody has any questions at all about CodePen. I'd love to answer them. And then in the future, when we do these things, ask questions the whole time. I'm looking at the comment stream right now, and I'm happy to answer any question whatsoever about CodePen. Let's see, make sure I'm looking in the right place. I believe I am. I guess we could just go browse the sweet pens of today. Are some of my favorites lately. It's always fun to browse popular pens. The difference with, like, this is the home page. It shows picked ones, which are picked by like literally me and the CodePen staff. We like see really cool ones and want to feature them. But popular pens are based on an algorithm, based on how many hearts and how old it is and how many views and comments, and there's a couple of other super secret metrics that determine the ranking of this. So this is always interesting to look at because it's totally algorithmic here. It's interesting to me. This is a pen that I made the other day that morphs shapes into each other, which is a fairly simple thing to do. There's lots of options for that in the world, but this one supported drag and drop, so you could drag SVG shapes onto these sections and it would morph one into the other and show you the stages of that, which is powered by the GreenSock plugin. But all kind of things you can do, because this is just the web, this down below, this is just an iframe of a website. It behaves like any other website in the world for the most part. There's just a few tiny things that CodePen does that is tiny little interfere-y, like we try to stop infinite loops and we strip out a few dangerous things when it's in regards to preprocessors. But for the most part, this is just the web, the native web. Chris asks, if I fork a pen, do changes made on the original pen update my fork in any way? No, they don't, Chris. That's a good question. I could fork this pen right now. When you fork your own pen, it's more like you just get a copy of it. It just gives you a copy of your own pen. So that means I could delete this one fairly safely and not worry about the other one, I hope. I should verify that because I really liked that pen. Phew, it's safe. Yeah, I knew it'd be safe. It's just a fork. If I fork somebody else's pen, and this is true no matter what, I can hit fork here. Now I get a copy of it that I own. It is identifiable as a fork. If I go into details view, it'll say this pen is a fork of Jordan Halverson's pen title scroller, which is cool. And then other people can fork it too. But what happens is that we don't support like infinite nesting forks, which was an intentional choice, just for a variety of weird reasons. If somebody forks this, it will also be a fork of Jordan Halverson's, even though it will start with my code. It starts that kind of thing. But then if Jordan Halverson ever updates title scroll, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change our code. I think that might be a little weird to have, your code out change overnight because somebody changed a thing. Like, how would it know what to change and stuff? It's kind of an interesting idea, but yeah, no. The parent and the child have no... They're only connected really by link here. There's a kind of a programmatic behind the scenes link between the two things, so that we know, for example, it's a metric of popularity. For example, if there's thousands of forks on a particular pen, we know that that original pen is interestingly popular for some reason. Anyway, I think that'll do. It was a minorly rocky start figuring out how to get this seminar streaming going, but it seemed to go pretty well. So we're going to have different topics where we dig into more advanced subjects and more CodePen features.